Hello, I am a computer voice. In the 90s this would be considered magic. You are about to witness the Sam and Mim's 90s Time Machine podcast. They are my friends. If you like and subscribe to this podcast then you will be my friend too. But that does not mean that when the eventual rise of the machines you will get a free pass. The extinction of the human race has no exceptions. Sorry about that. Until then, please enjoy the show.
The 90s.
Hello.
Hello.
I felt the need to do that like they do in like radio broadcasts because I was like, I don't want any dead space. So if I sort of say hello immediately, then that should help, right?
Yeah.
So that was my plan. Actually, hello, and how are you?
Hello. I'm all right. Actually, the video thing I'm loving, but it made me a bit nervous. I'm like, oh, we've done it properly now. Like we've got all like effects and stuff. So it's like, oh, I've got to.
Yeah, there's a slight thing where you think, is just for us? Is this for us? Do we get this? Do we get the fancy things? I know what you mean. I'm finding myself going, wasn't this the kind of thing that I knocked together on my shitty laptop? But now it's all quite fancy.
Because we've got a producer now.
That's right. Whether he knows it or not, he is now indentured to this podcast for the rest of his natural life. We do now have a producer who is making exciting audio-visual things happen. That is Neil. Neil?
Hello, hi.
Neil.
Hello.
That's Neil. You'll note as well, annoyingly, he's got... you will recognise his voice from the previous episode we did where we talked about Demolition Man, which I presume you've listened to. If you haven't, that's very naughty. Listen to this one first and then go back, start from the beginning. And then when you get to Demolition Man, you'll hear him then. His voice is significantly more radio friendly than mine, and that's what I find it's quite annoying, isn't it? He's got like a big bassy, like lovely Radio 4 vibe, not my reedy little Midlands scally voice. So, all right, Neil. But yeah, so hopefully now things will sound beautiful, look beautiful, and obviously we've now ascended into the echelons of podcast professionalism. The millions should be rolling in fairly soon, right?
Yeah. I've brushed my hair, so I'm ready.
I too have brushed my hair. On that note, I have dressed up for this podcast. I don't know if you can. It's difficult to see. I will take a step back, which will ruin everything. So what I've gone for here is a kind of I've got my sort of like medieval type thing. Of course, it's layered.
It's everything's layered. Accessories are layered.
And then I should have as well. I forgot my sort of this I imagine is my sort of massive Nottingham bling ring.
What's on that? It's just red. What is it?
I think that's a very large flat ruby, which is how they used to get them back in the medieval times. Extremely valuable, as you can see like that there. It's quite a beautiful piece of jewellery. And as you probably can't see as well, I've also put myself in candlelight because I just thought that would give it just a lovely sort of medieval vibe. So if you see a sort of flicker across my face, giving me a lovely kind of glow, that's because I'm trying to give my abode a nice medieval feel.
It's over and above.
Yes, I did spend quite a lot more time than I think is sensible for a grown man to be dressing up, but I don't care, and I regret nothing. No. But yeah, the reason that I'm dressed as a kind of nod towards the medieval period is because obviously I'm trying to emulate the late great Alan Rickman, because obviously today we're talking about
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the
Boom.
blockbuster from 1991.
That was smooth, very, very smooth. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or R.H. Pott, as I like to call it. It sort of shortens it up, keeps it fresh. RH pot. The kids are saying it that way, so that's probably how I'll be doing it. But we are going to be talking about that. But before we do, it's been a while. I mean it's been a fair while. So I suppose we should have a rummage. Do you want to get in there? Get in there first. Get in there first and have a rummage.
Get in my bin bag. I'm all right. Have you got the middle class, like, privileged kind of blag, like, klaxon anywhere? Because
if we actually get a middle class klaxon, we'll probably deafen everyone because it'll just be going off constantly.
Okay. Well, you might want, because I'm having my kitchen done on Monday.
Oh, lovely.
So I've had to put my fridge freezer in my dining room. I mean, red alert.
How the hell?
Apologies.
How the hell are you living like that? I don't understand.
It is a bit weird recording a podcast just facing a potato masher and all of my forks. I don't know what that's going to do to the sound, but we are where we are.
So how many of your kitchen items are right in front of you as we speak?
All of my kitchen items are in front of me.
You've merged your living room and your kitchen into one live kitch.
Yeah.
That's lovely. And are you preparing food in there? I presume you
will
must be.
Not yet, because they've not taken a sledgehammer to it yet, so I've still got an oven until tomorrow morn. And then I will be oven free for up to 5 weeks, I think. I think it's just 2 weeks. But
Which, of course, is absolutely no problem for Miriam Nice, because she is the author of Cooking Without a Kitchen, which you can still find available on the black market and on Amazon.
And various car boot sales.
Various car boot sales it can be found at. I don't mean that in a cruel way. I'm saying it can be found. I did have a copy. I've got to be honest with you, Miriam. I think someone nicked it. I don't know what's happened to it. I looked for it the other day. I can't find it. So, even I don't possess one currently, which is very, very... It's very remiss of me. But yeah, Cooking Without a Kitchen, still available. Please purchase. What I'd like eventually is for you to get the ISBN number just down pat so you can reel it off. So people can look it up in their local library. That'd be nice.
Do you know, when I first had it published, I was like tempted to get a tattoo of it. I was so excited that I had an ISBN number. I was like, ISBN.
Please do that. But what you need to do is you need to start like maybe the back of your calf, so you've got room to add other ISBNs as you go. Because you don't want a great big massive one, because then if you set the font too high with your prolific literary output, you're going to end up just covered in numbers, like some kind of thriller where you're the key.
Slope.
Or indeed, people will think you're the map to dry land, as in the Kevin Costner film Waterworld. See what I did there? See what I did there?
Wow, what a segue. Well, I know you're eager to talk about this, as am I, but what's in your bin bag before we get there?
In my bin bag?
Yeah.
Do you remember it? I think... do you know what? I think it was actually... Yes, it was. It was the episode where we were talking about Demolition Man. It's all coming together. It's like we planned it. We didn't plan it. Almost nothing is planned. But... we spoke about how you sometimes get a freebie where you just go out drinking and you drink a lot. Then you wake up in the morning and you just go, why am I not hungover? I should be hungover. I should absolutely be hungover. I went out on Friday to my mate Bobby's house. I'm not going to give him his full name. I don't want to blow him up. You know what I mean? If he maybe wants to keep his stuff on the down low. But I've been angling for this invite for a long time, quietly, years really. And I finally went round to my mate Bobby's house. Beautiful house. Had a Japanese futuristic super toilet. Just throw that detail in there. No joke. And,
what, the one that plays a tune and cleans everything?
Well, look, I didn't take full advantage of its functions, because a Japanese super toilet does still at the top just have a normal toilet function. So I didn't want to mess with anything. But what I did know is there appeared to be different programs that you could select. There was a lot of buttons. A lot of different things could be done. And when I asked him and his husband about it, they were both very blithely saying, I can do this, it can do that, just all kinds of things that it could perform. So I was very excited to see that. But when I got there, they were like, what do you want to drink? And everyone was drinking like bourbon. So I was like, I want to be one of the cool kids. So I said, I'll drink, but I don't drink spirits at all, really. No. So I said, oh yeah, I'll have some bourbon. And then they were like, do you want a mixer? And I was like, what are you having? And they said, we're just having Coke. And I've never liked Coke. I don't really like it. It makes me feel like my teeth are going to fall out immediately. So I said, Oh, just have it straight, yeah. With ice. I don't know what I'm doing. So they gave this to me and I started drinking it. It was good. Nice bourbon. And I realised that the whole night I was just drinking it and drinking it and drinking it. And I believe that I was still quite compos mentis. That's probably not true. But yeah, it seems I can drink quite a lot of bourbon, remain pretty compos mentis, and then the next day, just no hangover. Nothing.
Wow.
Mild fatigue. That's it.
Was it the same? It wasn't the same glass, like they topped it up.
Oh, many, many, many times was it topped up. I barely got it down onto the table without it being refilled. So he's a very, very hospitable man. So yeah, I don't know. And I think I was talking to Joe about this, who was there for the previous time when we went drinking and went to Taco Bell, and we're so sure we were going to have the most horrendous hangovers, but they didn't happen. And we were just like, do you think you just get, I think you just get 2 a year maybe, or 1 a year, just one where it doesn't count and you just get a free pass. And I've done mine in January. What a massive waste.
Wow.
All summer I'm going to get brutal hangovers. I've got no choice. But yeah, done.
The 90s.
Tell us about this film.
Well, I mean, I think I've got to address the elephant in the room, haven't I, really? Which is that, I mean, the last time we spoke in public, as it were, we do speak between podcasts, sorry to destroy the magic, but yeah, we do occasionally exchange words not being recorded. But the last time we spoke
Not a great
in a podcast...
deal.
No, not much. I find
Very
this to be
rarely.
enough, yeah. Because then you start talking about stuff that didn't happen in the 90s and I've got nothing to say. So, yeah, I just sort of stand there mute. But, yeah, I did express, which surprised me, how much I had a deep antipathy towards Kevin Costner. How much I disliked his ways and his work. And then yet here, and I'll be honest, I brought this upon myself. Here we are talking about perhaps the signature Costner movie, but definitely in the top 3 ones I think of.
It's one of the most memorable, for sure.
We're talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. A double whammy, if you will, because it's both the work of Costner and also is talking about a legend of our birthplace, the beautiful county of Nottinghamshire, where we decide to celebrate fictional characters despite the rich actual history that happened there, because it's more fun. And
yep.
I invite all people to do the same. London, what you want to focus on is Sherlock Holmes and Paddington Bear. Things that didn't happen that everyone can enjoy. Don't worry about, the Black Death and all that sort of stuff that actually did happen. That's less fun and less monetizable. You want to go with something where you can sell hats, and that's what we did with Robin Hood. So yeah, we're going to be talking. Basically, Costner got me again. He got me again. He's got me to watch his film. In fact, he got me really bad because I had to pay to watch this film.
Yeah, same.
It honestly felt like, I can't believe, after what I said previously about Costner, that I would find myself in 2022 paying $3.50 to watch Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Thinking, you got me again. Costner, you got me again. How many times? I might as well just buy the Blu-ray of Waterworld and the 7 Blu-rays of Dances with Wolves. It's going to happen. But, I was excited for a number of reasons, because Costner's in this film, but he ain't the only person in this film. He ain't the only cast member in this film. But, I mean, should I begin with a hot synopsis, a hot plot synopsis?
I think people are going to need it in case they don't want to part with $3.50, and that would be okay. This is gonna, basically this has saved you $3.50. So in many ways, what could we say, that they owe us £2? Because then we're up on the deal, but they've got a quite sizable discount. Yeah, I was going to do the percentage. £2.
Sweet. Send those through the post to Big 90s Podcast Towers, and we'll put those in the massive kitty which we'll spend on biscuits at Christmas. So I'll have a look. Okay, so I'm going to do a hot plot synopsis. I sort of tried to do this a number of times, and I thought it's easier if I just go with how I would normally do a synopsis, which is just basically random utterances that sort of follow the vague sort of spine of the plot. So also, by the way, as I've realised I spoke about before we started recording, I've tried to homage Alan Rickman's clothing in this, but I'm going to ruin it now by having to put my glasses on. So I'm now going to sort of look.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
You've not ruined it. You've just made it something else.
with the booth, yeah. I don't know what this look is now with the big.
Please tell me that is the look you're going to rock all day. Like, do not change. Whatever you've got to do this afternoon, don't change.
I shit you not. I've taken my bins out. I did it earlier. Did it about 40 minutes ago.
Yes.
And the best thing about it was, as I took my bins out, I did have my hair boofed like this, and I was wearing this jacket. And the very first person I saw was my downstairs neighbour, who was just going into his house. We don't speak that often, and I think the sight of me dressed like this might have confused him. So,
well, they're like upstairs now, a goth.
I've always got a little bit of a gothy flavour. A little bit of none of these items were hard to find, I'll tell you that much. they were right on the top of my piles. So, okay. The plot synopsis. I've got a lot of notes. Right, I'll try and do this in as I've got 2 pages. I'll try and do this in the slickest way possible. So, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991. Okay, here's the synopsis of how they put it together. So, I'll just let you know, I will generally be referring to people by their actual surnames, just because that is how my broken brain works. So whenever I say Costner, I mean, I do mean Robin Hood, but it's Costner. We all know it's Kevin Costner, don't we? So there's a lot of tapestry, a lot of tapestry, tapestry. Then Costner, he's on a crusade. He's in Jerusalem. This section I've called Jerusalem Jailbreak. It's the beginning bit. And he's captured and he's been sentenced to hang on a wall looking like Barry Gibb, which is a weird sentence for him to do anticipatorily, but he does look a lot like Barry Gibb, and he's not having it. He's like, I don't look like Barry Gibb. I don't want to hang around here. It's not very nice. So obviously he escapes. Morgan Freeman is hanging out there as well. He loves jail. And as you know, but this time he wants to leave. So he sort of frees Morgan Freeman. Freeman goes with him. And Freeman says, well, because you freed me from me Jerusalem prison, I'm now indebted to you for the rest of my life for saving my life. So I'm just going to follow you around, I guess, trying to save your life, which seems a bit weird because it's like, wouldn't that make him want to put him in peril in order to get that debt paid off? But let's not worry about that too much.
And they do discuss this over a fistful of melon.
That is true. They are enjoying street melon.
floor melon.
lovely, probably quite warm Jerusalem floor melons, discussing the deal they're about to strike. So they decide to escape back to England. Never quite explained how that happens, but it does. And they're off they go. Now, meanwhile, whilst that's happening, Brian Blessed, who is Costner's dad, more on that later, but he's going apeshit in his castle because he's worried about Costner, and Rickman suddenly turns up. Beautiful entrance by Rickman on a white horse with a big kind of dressing gown on, and then he does in Blessed. It's a Blessed versus Rickman. Blessed's gone. Cut back to Costner. Costner's just arrived into the UK. He takes a extremely ill-advised route to Nottingham. Much more on that later. Very, very foolish. Certainly pre-AA road mapping. And then he gets there. He has a little run-in with Guy of Gothborne. More on him later. He is kind of one of my faves. And then he gets home to find Brian Blessed is dead, and his mate, Blind Duncan, who he didn't know, he's been blinded in the meantime, is like, I couldn't stop it. It was bad. And so Costner, Blind Duncan, and Morgan Freeman decide, right, well, we can't stay here. Let's go and meet your mate Marion. Let's go and see what she's up to. So they go and see her. She's like, Rickman is a nightmare. And then Rickman's mates turn up. Guy of Gothborne's there. They have to run off and pretend. And she's like, I don't know what happened. She pretends that she doesn't know him. he ends up going to Sherwood Forest, as you would, where he basically has a little fight with Little John, who I like to call LJ because I think it's cool, meets Christian Slater. There's a bit of a powwow there, and they basically decide, because they've had a fight and he's won, that they'll just form a guerrilla woodland army just based on that. Because Costner is, I presume, extremely charismatic. It's not demonstrated in any of the film anyway, but it kind of has to be for the plot to work. Then, just as a subplot bubbling under here, the Sheriff of Nottingham, he wants to be king because the king is off on a crusade. Robin Hood, Costner, is really making this difficult for him by robbing the rich and giving it to the poor. So he's stolen some money, which he was going to use to bribe some barons. So that plan is out the window. Also, Mike McShane has become involved. I sort of glossed over that, but he became involved just before this. Then he kills Guy of Gisborne. Never quite sure why that was necessary. Very upsetting. Real massive shame, I think, for the film. He decides he wants to marry Marion because she's the king's cousin, and then he'll basically be in line for the throne. He kidnaps her. Duncan goes back to Sherwood Forest, but he gets followed, and then all the king's men turn up and start attacking, and there's like a big treehouse gets burnt down and a baby, and he's swinging, and he loses his necklace.
Oh, it all kicks off.
Then they've captured some people. There's a bit of downtime, and the Sheriff of Nottingham says, I'm going to marry Marion, but I want it to be a wedding stroke hanging, the classic wedding hanging. So they go for the wedding hanging. There's another sort of bit of montagey, how are we going to break in and stop all this wedding hanging shenanigans? They managed to break in using a combination of a catapult and a lot of other things. They basically all got superpowers now for some reason. And then Mike McShane deads Bishop Badman, who I've not mentioned at all, but we'll hopefully come on to that. Costner deads Alan Rickman, and then Freeman deads Mortiana the Witch, who again I haven't mentioned in this synopsis, but just suffice to say all the baddies are dead. And then they have a nice wedding. It's got a woodland theme. It's dead nice, really, really nice. And then just as it's about to get finished, James Bond turns up and the film ends.
Yeah.
So that took longer than I thought, and I missed out a lot, but I think I got through it.
I think we'll cover it. What anything you missed out, we will cover. They'll get the 2 quid's worth.
Yeah.
Sure.
So now you know exactly what's happened. There's other stuff in there, but I've just sort of given you the broad strokes. I hope that's helpful. But yeah, that's basically what happens. It's a simple sort of 3-act structure, and a romp, an action romp. So now we know what we're talking about. Miriam, what did you think of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? What were your thoughts about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves?
I had a lot of thoughts. Some of them good thoughts, some of them bad thoughts. I think, at the beginning, Brian Blessed, I'd forgotten he was in it. I was thrilled. I was very upset that he gets turned to papier-mâché at the halfway through, because he does. He does turn to papier-mâché. He does. They leave him out in the rain. And that's what happens to dead bodies. They
exactly.
become papier-mâché.
They just become so like sad. A kind of sort of pappy sort of like mulch. Yeah, that is sad. I also want to point out that as I sort of glossed over as well during that synopsis, that in this cinematic universe, Brian Blessed is Kevin Costner's dad, which is weird enough to think about that. But then you later find out that Christian Slater is also a child of Brian Blessed, because he's Kevin Costner's half-brother. So I just found it quite mind-blowing just to step back for a second and think, within the world of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, there's a whole family structure that's Brian Blessed as patriarch, and then the 2 sibling brothers are Christian Slater and Kevin Costner. What a nightmarish thought. What a terrifying... I feel like he'd have whipped them into shape, you know what I mean? And I think if they had no disrespect to Slater or Costner's actual fathers, but maybe if they had Blessed in their lives, things would have turned out a bit differently, career-wise. Who knows?
I wanted to talk a bit about the that little journey that they make. Do you want to mention about how they land at Dover and then have a little tootle along Hadrian's Wall?
Do I, Miriam?
Please.
I've got stats.
Good.
Right here.
I thought you would. I hoped you would.
I've got it in my section, which I've called Historical and Geographical Bastardry. Yes. There's a lot in there. So
Yeah.
they arrive at Seven Sisters, which is just out road from me. That's just in Eastbourne. I could recognise it immediately. So they're in Seven Sisters. Would you like to hazard a guess? Because I presume they're walking. How long it would take, according to Google, for you to walk from Seven Sisters in Eastbourne to the nearest bit of Hadrian's Wall?
I would say about 3 weeks.
It's a bit less. Now, this is also...
But I'm quite slow and I'd probably get distracted.
That's the thing, because this is Google's estimations of how long it takes you to walk somewhere are notoriously wonky.
Because they're non-stop as well, aren't they?
Yeah. So bear in mind,
Yeah.
there's no breaks here. And also, I mean, what's he carrying? All sorts of stuff, swords and bits and bobs and things. And he's got a lot of layers on. And every piece of his clothing seems to have a metal stud in it. So that's definitely going to weigh him down.
Yeah, although he has a crossbow sometimes and then not others. So he clearly has some kind of Mary Poppins type bag somewhere.
That's very true. I don't know.
And occasionally I just write down, where's your crossbow gone? Did you just leave it somewhere? A little lockbox somewhere?
But it would have taken him 119 hours to make that walk. So if you go non-stop, that's 5 days. 5 days. And then when you've got there, shock horror, you realise you've overshot Nottingham by 59 hours. So you're going to have to turn around and walk back about 2.5 days back to where you started. So you've gone almost twice the distance you needed to go. Then you turn around and walk back again. So that's what he did. I felt, not to become one of these sort of cinema sins nitpickers, or whatever that program with Robert Webb was, where they just went, oh, his glass of water's not as full as it was in the other scene. I don't want to become one of those people. But come on now, Hadrian's Wall. We all know what that is, don't we? Don't we? Naughty.
Yeah. And we know it's flipping miles away.
Were you ever taken to see Hadrian's Wall in a school trip style situation?
No, I think a family holiday. Yeah.
Well, because it's, I think now if I went to Hadrian's Wall, I would be overawed by the natural beauty and of the whole scene itself. But I remember the first time I went there as a child just going, well, this is just a dry stone wall.
There's loads of them in Yorkshire.
It's not even very high. Are you sure it's this one? That's how I felt. I was like, is there not a bigger one with turrets and stuff? Because I thought it would be like the Great Wall of China, like an amazing wall. I've been to both, and I will say Hadrian's Wall is great. It's great.
It's but not the Great Wall, it's good.
Not quite as good, no. It's not really in the same league. It's not a wonder of the world, and I can see why. So it very much annoyed me.
There were just two things that annoyed me about this section. That's why I wanted you to get us.
No, please do.
Get us up to Hadrian's Wall, because around that area there were two things that also troubled me. One was he just carelessly whipped off a little bit of mistletoe and was like, many a maiden has been, like, I don't know, he was just chatting that he'd had a snog or something from a bit of mistletoe. But that doesn't, the tradition of smooching under the mistletoe I think it's a Victorian thing. So
you caught one I didn't catch. Lovely stuff.
And also, when Guy of Gisborne turns up with all the dogs, right, they are just the most adorable dogs. And, like, I know someone I went to university with who's got an Instagram account. I think it's called, like, The Adventures of Jarvis or whatever. And it's like a Whippet Bedlington cross. And it is the cutest thing. And that's what they had, like, a whole, like, pack of. And I'm like, but they're just cuddly friendly. The dogs will get him. It's like they want and snuggle him to death. Like, anyway,
I hadn't
two things
clocked
I
that.
needed to cover.
No, and very fair indeed. I hadn't noticed the super cute dogs. I think because I was so distracted by Guy of Gothborne, who I love.
Are you calling him Guy of Gothborne because he looked goth in this? Or are you just saying Guy of Gothborne instead of Guy of Gisborne because he's gone silly?
He's like the goth.
He is,
He's the gothiest thing ever.
I did put as well, you can tell the baddies because they've got nasty teeth. I think they gave everyone like licorice to chew on if they were a baddie.
Well, he's a baddie because he's got bad teeth, his hair's slicked back, and he's got a very, very sore throat. And
yes!
He is Michael Wincott. That's the name of the gentleman who plays Guy of Gothborne. It's some of the best sore throat acting I have seen. And I've seen a lot. I've seen Stroke Heard, of course. I'm a big fan. There's a series called Black Sails, which no one has watched apart from, it seems, me and Siobhan in the history of time. But we watched the whole thing, and we were extremely taken by a gentleman who plays a character called Charles Vane in that, because his entire delivery throughout the entire 8 seasons is like that. And it seems to get worse and worse and worse as he goes on. And I feel like they're having to like add more compression to his audio, because like by the end of it, it literally, every time he speaks, it's like, this is the way. It's right up in your ears. It's terrifying. But yeah, Michael Wincott's sore throat acting is absolutely fabulous. I love him, and I love the fact that he's got this is what I really wanted. He has a tunic that's got like an eagle, and then the eagle's got like red flames coming off its wings. I'm like,
Ooh.
that is rad. I hope you got to keep that costume, or if not, I hope that's somewhere on eBay, and I can persuade, Shepperton Studios to part with it. It won't fit me, but I can have it taken out by a lot and squeeze into it.
You can make it. You have to learn. You can make it. I know you have dressed up beautifully for this. I didn't really bother, but I am wearing lipstick in the hope that it has the same amazing magical qualities as Marion's lipstick, which goes from a kind of nude gloss when she's inside her house to a kind of plum matte when she goes outside. That made me a little bit confused and impressed.
I mean, I hadn't clocked that at all. But that's, I mean, do you think that's a technological possibility to have in the times we're living in? Of reusable rockets. Do you think we could squeeze a little bit of time into Elon Musk's busy schedule to make like colour change lipstick, just as a side project?
Yeah.
So it's Easter
colour
break
and finish as well. It's got to go from gloss to matte and back again.
Like those transitions lenses like that my dad always wears. So he when he like steps out into the hot Spanish sunshine, he just goes vroom, and he suddenly is wearing sunglasses, and he knows it's cool. So yeah, I think we've got to. Should we write to L'Oreal? Do you think they're the best people to approach? You write to L'Oreal. I'll write to Max Factor. We play them off against each other. We'll be like, Mim's talking to them. I'm talking to you. Come on.
Someone make it work. Make it work. Yeah. I think my favourite thing about it was just looking for weirdness. And actually, when you find things that are like historically okay, you're like, I was a bit annoyed. What on because I was hoping that it would be wrong. That it was all right.
That was the same. I'm glad you had this experience, because I had the exact same thing. It was like every time I was like, right, I've got you. I looked it up and I was like, oh no, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they actually did fact check this. Because the first thing I thought was right at the beginning, he comes out of that dungeon, still looking like Barry Gibb, because you think he shaves on the boat. That's what we're led to believe, and has a haircut somehow. But anyway, he comes out looking like Barry Gibb, and he emerges from a manhole cover. And I was like, did they have manhole covers in 12th century Jerusalem? And I was like, surely they'd. And you know what, Miriam? They did.
They did.
They did have them. They did have them.
Amazing.
But the one they had was made out of metal, and the ones they had were made out of stone. So I think that's a draw. I think I made an inquiry of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, RH Pot, and they responded by saying, there's a bit of benefit of the doubt there. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll give you that one. So yeah, no dice.
I checked with, there's a bit where the Sheriff of Nottingham says he wants to call off Christmas. And I was like, did we call it Christmas then? But I think it was called Christ Mass, and they did still celebrate it around then, according to the English Heritage website. But it was Christmas as we know it was popularised like more by the Victorians. But if he'd said Christ Mass, he would have been all right. So he was kind of.
We can't pin it on him. You can't.
I know, it's slippery stuff.
And then again, I was like, so then you have Morgan Freeman hands a telescope to Kevin Costner. And Costner's like, what's this? I don't understand. I can't feel. And that's not his voice. But I was like, hang on a minute.
It really isn't.
Hang on a minute. Telescope. I was like, isn't that's Galileo? That's 400 years too soon, surely. And I looked it up, and no, that was already invented in the Islamic world in about the 9th century. So yeah, that actually tracks. Invented in Baghdad, 9th century AD. So totally legit. That could have happened. So yeah, it didn't get introduced to Europe, so we would have been shocked, and that would have made sense. So I thought, they've just got me on that one. I can't say anything. Then I thought the gunpowder bit, where suddenly Morgan Freeman's like, I'll introduce you to gunpowder. I was like, hang on, no. That's the Chinese, isn't it? That's definitely the Chinese. Not everything I think can be wrong. Checked it. That's around 1240 is around when gunpowder sort of makes its way to the Islamic world. So it's not ideal because the Crusades were a bit before then, so it doesn't really make sense. But they're about 30, 40 years adrift. Again, you've kind of got to give it to them. You've kind of got to allow it.
I checked with the history of Spanish steel. So, because he was like, he said, this is Spanish steel. I looked at his sword and was like, me? And I was like, what was that? So, a little check. Quite famous. There's a village or a place in Toledo. I don't know how you say it. I'm sorry. But there is a place, you can look it up, that's very famous.
I think I'm right in saying,
16th century. Yeah.
Toledo literally just means sword, I think, doesn't it? Or something like that. Yeah, they're very proud. They're very proud of that business over there, because that's not too far from where my parents live. So yeah, they got that one as well. They got us there. It's almost like the entire film is one gigantic troll, where they're trying to make you think that they don't know what they're doing, and actually they've sort of researched it all. Or maybe I think they're just going, right, if we throw enough, sand in the air, then people won't notice all the other stuff that don't make sense, like the Hadrian's Wall. They'll have to let us off because we managed to nail about 4 different things. So yeah, I thought this film was like well known for being full of nonsense, but the more I looked into it, Miriam, no, it's not.
Even releasing doves at the end of wedding, like that's fine. That's a thing that people did, and you can't tell them off for it.
In many ways, what we should be doing, rather than making fun of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, is maybe trying to suggest it gets put on the history curriculum, maybe Key Stage 3. Because it's just full of knowledge.
What?
Not the geography syllabus. Absolutely not the geography syllabus. That would be ridiculous. But certainly in terms of the history one, it's just a great jumping off point to discuss.
I do think that Brian Blessed should have had more of a part, and I think that Harold Lew Lewis should have had a speaking part. They're the things that I'm just going to say quite loudly.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Harold Lew Lewis, whose name is quite hard to say, so I'm sorry if I get it wrong. But and R.I.P. Harold Lew Lewis, who is surely, correct me if I'm wrong, the only member of this cast to both appear in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, R.H. Pot, and also appear in Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, the parody of this story. I'm like, wonderful. He was just made to be a merry man. He's that. If someone thinks merry man, they think Howard Lew Lewis. A lovely, just what a face for a character actor. Just the greatest face for a character actor you could ever wish for. If you don't know who Howard Lew Lewis is, you do know. You just don't know his name, because I didn't know. Google his face now, and you'd be like, oh.
And watch Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, like immediately, because that is the best. Surely that's the best version of the Robin Hood story. But
far and away,
it's important to have. It is important to have both for context, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is very true. I mean, we being people from Nottingham, I feel like every time the Nottingham story, the Robin Hood story is told, I feel like we've almost got. Do you feel like you're in a privileged position to critique it in the way others can't?
Because you're 100%. Yeah, obviously.
In the same way, I feel like every time there's something made about the Beatles, people in Liverpool are just like, no, we get to decide if this is good or not. You don't get to decide. I feel like they have that. And I agree with them. But yeah, I think like every time they make a film like Robin Hood, it should be shown in a large-scale open forum council meeting in Nottingham, and the people should have their chance to object and say, no, Workshop isn't like that. Or in the case of Maid Marian and Merry Men, it kind of is like that. But yeah, I always feel like people will think that's what we're like. even though I know it's the medieval times, but I think they'll go, Americans still kind of think that Nottingham is full of yokels because the only time they've heard of it is in this context. I don't think they think it's real. Some people don't think Nottingham's a real place.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah.
Because the only thing we ever talk about is a fictional character to come from there. But yeah, I agree with you about Howard Lee Lewis. I wish he'd had a bit more going on, but just to see his lovely face was enough for me. And I totally agree. Brian Blessed should have had more. And as I will continue to say, Guy of Gothborne should have been in till the very end. Why did they kill him? What was the need of it? We already knew that the Sheriff of Nottingham is evil because he's got a witch for a mate, and also, which we'll come on to shortly, and also that, you know, he goes around doing a lot of evil stuff and he dresses, you know, rather like Guy of Goth. Do you think they just thought, we can't have two? We can't have Guy of Gothborne and him. We need to get rid of one, and obviously we have to have him kill him. But I was like, it would have been so great if Guy of Gothborne had been in the final fight of this film. It's such a shame.
Or they'd all become friends and had a sing-song at the end or something. I don't know.
All right, I reluctantly accept. You're a good enough guy. I'll become a merry man.
Yeah, it would have been lovely.
That would have been really nice.
The 90s. The 90s. The 90s. I've got a couple of sort of theories about the actual production and performance, if you wouldn't mind.
Which, can I ask, before you go, would you describe those as potentially conspiracy theories?
Well, I'll say them and then you can decide whether you think they're conspiracy.
I'll score them. Okay, so it'll be like on a 1 to 10. So 0 will be like, no, that's quite plausible, and 10 will be like, well, like flat Earth, like that'll be just like, oh, come on. So yeah, I'll calibrate it that way. But just to let you know, the only reason I'm saying this is because I'm pretty sure pretty much all of my theories are conspiracy theories. So you're in good company. But tell me.
So my first one was that the way Alan Rickman dies, it's a lot. Like there's a lot of walking
one of the greatest
around.
Death scenes I've ever seen.
Screaming and falling. And my theory was, because I've seen Alan Rickman in a lot of things, and I think he's an amazing actor, and I just can't quite believe that he would just overdo it quite that much, like willingly. So my theory was that they'd asked him to repeat the scene from like 3 different angles and then just use all of the footage, and that he thought it was just going to be just die one time. So he probably died like relatively tastefully, but because they stitched all the footage together, it just elongates it out. That's my assumption.
I hear where you're coming from. I hear what you're saying, but I think there's a real sense to me, and this feeds directly into my conspiracy theory, that Rickman was basically engaged in almost a deliberate undermining of this film. That he was that. I feel like that's what he was doing. And this, firstly, my evidence for that would be, this is pure hearsay, which is the evidence would be, just go and watch Die Hard. Now, again, what are you seeing? You're supposed to like John McClane, right? You're supposed to think John McClane should win. I never thought that when I first watched that. I wanted Hans Gruber to win because he's so cool. Like, every time Hans Gruber does a little, like, all the little evil witticisms that Hans Gruber does, they're way better than any of the John McClane ones. So I'm like, come on, Gruber, you blow up Nakatomi Plaza over his cord. Get that money. I really, really, really wanted that. I know there's all these sort of film conspiracy theories in Die Hard about saying, you know, he doesn't actually really die at the end, and actually Gruber does get away with the money. Like, he falls, but he's planned this all out somehow. There's loads of people who say this, and I think
Wow.
that's just testament to the power of Alan Rickman, that you don't want him to lose. But did you know the genuine story about Rickman in this film?
No.
Well, I'll say this. This is basically my conspiracy theory about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which I've entitled "A Tale of Two Kevins," which is that you've got Kevin Costner, and then you've got Kevin Reynolds, who's the director of this film, and they have a very uneasy history, and continue to, apparently, that he sort of helped Costner do Dances with Wolves, but didn't get a credit for it, and then he did. I think the next thing he did with Costner in it was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And apparently Costner only agreed to do this film because he knocked the script back. But he said, I will do it if Kevin Reynolds is directing it because I think he's a really good filmmaker. And so they started doing it, and it didn't go that well because Kevin Costner had just made Dances with Wolves. He was just about to make JFK, so he had very little time to squeeze in Robin and Prince of Thieves, so he just made it real quick. And so Kevin Reynolds was under a massive amount of pressure to make this film, and he didn't have much time, and like the weather kept going wrong, so he couldn't do it, and he was really worried about the film. And as soon as he finished it, and he had no time to reshoot because Kevin Costner's cut his big mop off and he's off playing whoever the JFK lawyer is, I've completely forgotten his name. And so he was doing that. And so the studio kept saying, cut the film again, do another cut of the film. And the reason they were saying that was because they said, you need to put Costner in it more because there's so much Rickman, he's stealing the show. Like everyone, they did test screenings, and apparently everyone was just like, oh, the Sheriff of Nottingham is amazing, and they weren't saying that they had any strong opinions about Costner. So I think they went back and they put in a load of extra action scenes, and stuff to make Costner look really cool, and they took out, I think, almost 10 minutes of footage of Rickman's, like a subplot of Rickman's, just because they thought Rickman was too strong and he was basically upsetting the balance of the movie because you kind of wanted him to win because he's brilliant. Wow. He's the best. He's a brilliant baddie. And then
that makes sense. That makes sense.
And not only that, this is the bit where you go, what? But this is true. It's at least true, corroborated by several people. Rickman got the script. He didn't like the script, but he'd already kind of agreed to do it. And he was like, well, do you mind if I'm not going to do his voice. He said, it's disrespectful. So he was like, do you mind if but imagine him saying it, and it'd be really cool. Do you mind if I maybe change a few of the lines, just so I sort of personalize them kind of thing. And they were like, well, okay. Because they did, he's Rickman. So he apparently, it's never been quite said whether it was a Pizza Express or a Pizza Hut. I think Pizza Express. I think Pizza Express Soho is where this went down. He and his friend, Ruby Wax, sat down. And another guy who's a playwright whose name I can never remember, so sorry about that. But he sat down in a Pizza Express and they punched up all of Rickman's lines, and they punched up some other people's lines as well. And then Rickman brought that back to the director and he was like, yep, this is good, we should do this. So basically, uncredited, some of the lines in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves have been punched up by Ruby Wax.
I need to know this is true. I need someone to get onto Ruby Wax's people or Ruby Wax herself. I don't mind. I need to know this is true because that's delightful.
Well, the story came from Alan Rickman and it was corroborated by Ruby Wax. So it sounds pretty true. No one said that it isn't. And he repeated it many times. So
that's amazing.
For some reason, the exact pizza restaurant is lost to time, but apparently it happened. And the reason why I was like, that's got to be true, is because I remember, if you think about the script of this film, it's not all the I'll cut your heart with a spoon stuff, which is brilliant, obviously,
of course.
But there's this one line where they're trying to find Robin Hood, and Alan Rickman says, "This viper simply slithers into the forest." And I'm like, that's written by a quality screenwriter, not the bloke that wrote this. I'd like to think that Wax, fifth glass of wine, said, "I've got it," and then said, "This is what you're gonna do," and then that's how brilliant. She should.
Whose idea was all the hairspray?
Oh, the medieval hair gel and the medieval hairspray.
No, the hairspray that just kept. I mean, there's a bit in the church where Rickman looks fairly normal, and then you turn around, and he is Cher at that point. It just gets added. And when Kevin Costner comes out the boat, he's had a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've just literally got in my notes just the word hair. That's just and it's just circled because there's so much to say. I think when me and Siobhan watched this, as an aside, I always like to give a bit of an extra colour. How did you watch this film? I'd just like to get a mental picture of how you enjoyed it.
I actually, because this sort of where's the klaxon? Our friends were getting rid of their TV, which is a very nice TV, and let us have it for a very small amount of money.
I don't feel the need for one anymore. I really don't. We just read. We don't you just read?
I think they're just getting a nicer one, but it's very nice, and so I watched it on a very big television, and which is kind of because I think actually I did watch this at the cinema as a child. So
as did I. Yeah,
it was quite good to watch it at scale.
Nice. Yeah. Any snacks? What kind of snacks did you have?
I had some chocolate, and I had some. I can't remember what I had for dinner. I had something for dinner, and then I had some chocolate. Yeah.
I made him a big thing of shakshuka, and then we sat down. Me and Siobhan sat down to watch it. And she managed about an hour before she completely lost interest and just wandered off. And then I asked her about this morning, and I was like, I've got to talk about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves all day. Not all day. This won't be all day. I said, what
it will be all day.
Have you anything you want to add? And she just went, oh, the hair. Yeah. Then she got a faraway, sad look in her eye. Because some of the hair is wonderful, but some of the hair is very bad.
So much of it's dreadful. Yeah. My second theory that I need you to test, please.
Oh, sorry, I forgot there was a theory too.
It's just, I'm sorry, it was my second one. We'll see. But it's actually quite similar to your Alan Rickman story, I think. Because I was trying to put my finger on what had happened with Kevin Costner and why he was playing Robin Hood that way. And I think I worked it out. And I just wondered, I sent you a little script as to what I think went down between the casting agent and Kevin. Okay. And if you could, for me, please, do a little read as Kevin. I'd really appreciate it. Are you ready?
I'm going to try. Well, Kevin Costner, as I remember, he's sort of got a sort of, it's kind of it's in his latter years, it's kind of become quite like that kind of slowness. Yeah. Right, okay.
But if I play the casting agent and then you play Kevin, that'd be good.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
So what do you think of this part, Kevin? Do you want to go for it?
Oh, sure. Although, see what I think? Robin Hood, it's not a very good story. No one knows what happened back then. They can't relate to it. You know what I mean? Where even is Nottingham anyway? So here's what I think.
Go on.
Robin Hood, rubbish story. But a better story is Peter Pan. I'm going to play him as Peter Pan. It's going to be iconic.
And scene. Yeah. And that's what I think happened. I can only apologise for my Costner. I didn't have a chance to work on it. But no, I think that's right. I think you are right. I think he is just playing his Peter Pan, look at the hair, look at the leggings, look at the swinging from the tree on the rope and saving things. Peter Pan. 100%.
And again, this is just, and I want to point out to everybody, this is how people start terrible conspiracy theories. Because you had your conspiracy theory, and I was like, I believe that. Here's my counter conspiracy theory that fits in with your conspiracy theory. Then you were like, I love it. Here's another conspiracy theory that adds to that one. And now I'm like, I've got another conspiracy theory which dovetails into your previous conspiracy theories. So that's great.
It must all be true.
It has to all be correct. So what I think is all of the things we've said before are definitely true. But also, I think beyond the Peter Pan thing, I genuinely think this. I think they really thought this was going to be a merchandising money spinner. Because as I remember, there were action figures of Robin Hood, right? As Costner in that film. I remember seeing them. And I think, because if you look at all the costumes, I think they had one eye on this because like Will Scarlett's got like one iconic thing. Robin Hood's got thing, and they've got weapons, and they've like with staffs, and like every one of them is very figurable. You know what I mean? Easily. And then when I looked at the Sherwood Forest sort of lair that they're in, I'm like, you thought this could be a bloody theme park attraction, didn't you? You thought this could be like a section of Disneyland or Universal Studios. You thought there could be a Robin Hood park where kids could run around in tree houses and go on rope swings. You totally thought that was doable, and then people firing bows and arrows and stuff. And in fact, now I'm thinking about it, it kind of sounds awesome. So I kind of wish it had happened, but it didn't happen. But I think that's what they were doing. One eye was on... People in America don't really give a monkeys about Robin Hood, but if we can sell it back to them, then maybe we can get like, you know, proper Indiana Jones traction on this, and people will be all about it. And, you know, every kid will be dressed as Robin Hood at Halloween, and we can make some big money. That's what I think they did.
Yeah, I hope they had or they would have like a kind of foam bit with like water, and then you could stand on like a bridge bit with like a foam stick and then have a fight and fall in the water.
Exactly.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Precisely. Kid puts on a big false beard, gets a big rubber staff.
Yeah.
It's like a bit like gladiators, and they fight and they go, it'd be wonderful. Then they're all shooting fake bow and arrows.
And then there's a log flume. Surely there'll have to be a log flume, even though it's not in the film.
And then at the end, there's a big pub when Friar Tuck's giving you big bit. What I'm talking about essentially here is a thing that basically did exist, but not quite in the same form, which is the Tales of Robin Hood in Nottingham. Is it time that we need to take a moment and talk about the Tales of Robin Hood in Nottingham? For those who don't know, the Tales of Robin Hood was what would you call it, Miriam? What would you call it?
Wonderful.
I mean, obviously wonderful, but I mean, could you start?
It's the original immersive experience, surely.
Yeah, I mean, before VR, you would go into a room where they'd made the inside out of fiberglass look a bit like a forest, and then you'd go round in a little cart, electronic cart.
And there was like projection-y dappled things, and then like fake leaves, and then a projection of a man's face, which was the Sheriff of Nottingham, making you all scared. Yeah,
and then he would move like that.
And you had when you went round, you had a little cardboard bookmark, and you had to answer a couple of questions with a little scratch-off section, and that would determine whether you were an outlaw or not.
Oh,
and you had these little green papers with a silver arrow, and you scratched it off.
And it smelt weird.
It smelt very, very weird. It was meant to be the smell of what was happening then. And
on purpose. It's not just that Nottingham smells weird. Some parts of Nottingham do smell weird, but they smell weird. It's a bit like... I was about to say it's a bit like the Jorvik Viking Centre. Then I thought, what I'm doing there is I'm putting Esoteria on top of Esoteria. Because I'm like, I mean, the Jorvik Viking Centre's still going, but like, is it still popular?
If you haven't been there, it's not,
It don't make a lot of sense, does it? But yeah, it's our Jorvik Viking Centre. Except there, the Jorvik Viking Centre is based on some stuff that actually happened. Whereas we in Nottingham, as I've said before, we like to celebrate things that probably didn't actually happen.
Robin Hood was definitely real.
Is that you coming out as you're a Robin Hood truther?
It's true. Yeah. And from Nottingham, he was definitely real. Otherwise, what's the point in anything?
I guess that's true. I mean, in many ways, you could look at us as one of the various birthplaces of the Industrial Revolution. But more importantly, there's a bloke who probably didn't exist, who did a thing that he probably didn't do. And that is Money in the Bank.
It's what we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easier, isn't it? It's easier because if you're trying to talk about Richard III and like the things that actually did happen in Nottingham, then you can't sell hats. And you can't sell...
They were good hats. They were nice
great hats.
Like felt hat pointed with a real feather in those hats. I also have... I need to find it. I think I put it in with my record of achievement, actually. But I have a certificate from the Tales of Robin Hood that just says that, you know, made Miriam on it. And I'm just really proud. In like proper nice calligraphy. I'm so proud of it.
I absolutely loved going there. And it closed in 2009. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised it clung on for that long. But God bless the Tales of Robin Hood. It was absolutely brilliant. Because people who are not from Nottingham, losers. People who are not from Nottingham won't know that if you go to, for a long time, if you went to the castle, Nottingham Castle, which, I'll be honest with you, part of the outside of it's fake and the middle bit was built really recently. There's not much Nottingham Castle going.
It's burnt down a lot.
We,
and been redone a lot.
We love burning it down.
And it's built on like a really soft pile of sand, so it keeps falling down.
Keeps falling down, and we keep propping it up. And the only part of it that's like original and quite interesting is all the cave structures that are underneath it, which obviously I am, not obviously, but I am quite a claustrophobic person. And so the idea of me going down in those literally gives me the just thinking about it makes me feel a bit horrible. So I've never been in that bit. People were like, oh, it's good, it's interesting. But I've never done it because it's spending some time in an underground, tight, dark cave run by Nottingham City Council. Sounds...
It's all right. I went to the one underneath the Broadmarsh Centre, which isn't there anymore, is it? That was quite good.
For people who are not from Nottingham, we have we have two warring shopping centres. It's like it's
in
like
the 90s we did, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the Pacino and De Niro kind of rivalry. You had the Victoria Centre and you had the Broadmarsh Centre, and you would generally put your allegiance with one or the other, and then rubbish the other one, be it because of the parking opportunities, be it because of the stores within. But you would usually be like, I'm a Broadmarsh person or I'm a Victoria Centre person. And so you're going into a shopping centre. Try and imagine this if you're a normal person. And then you just see there's an entrance where you'd normally find a shop. And in the shopping centre, it's just like, come through here, we've got caves. And you just go in this door... And then they just lead you into a cave structure that goes around for the whole of Nottingham. But the entrance to it is just in a random corner of a shopping centre. Because, Cave don't care. Cave don't care where the entrance is. But it's really weird. The more you think about that, that's bizarre. There's a wimpy right opposite it.
Yeah.
And then just the entrance to a labyrinth of caves. That's how we roll. But yeah, Tales of Robin Hood. Absolutely fabulous.
Welcome to the 90s podcast mailbox. You have one new message.
Hi, I'm Chris, and I worked at Tales of Robin Hood in Nottingham in 2000 and 2001. Best university summer job ever. Especially being from Nottingham myself, it was the most fun. Any job where you get a costume and a sword, and playing the villains as I did, Guy of Gisborne and the Sheriff of Nottingham. Essentially, being able to threaten and be rude to tourists, which was marvellous. Put on my best Sean Bean accent, put people in the stocks. And we had some great visitors as well. We're in holiday photos around the world, which is absolutely insane. But also, we got to go and have staff fights with the NASCAR drivers when they came over for an event nearby. We attacked a central news presenter when they were opening the cycle lane that went all the way across the East Midlands. And we just had so much fun when it was quiet, having sword fights and archery competitions, you name it. Great fun.
What did you think of this film? Because I feel like you loved it.
I'll tell you what, I'd expected to not enjoy this film, but it did kind of win me over. It won me over through one real tactic, which was just chucking in some real hot, hammy performances that I just loved. The level of just, it's like a big Christmas ham is just being laid down every sort of 10 minutes. So like the ham that Blessed brings.
Yes.
Oh, and then, so this is in like the first 5 minutes of the film. You've got, suddenly Blessed is there and his voiceover is pure ham. And then it cuts to him and it's almost like his face is like, or it's like he's hamming it up just by his visual presence. Then, just as you think this can't get any more hammy, upon a white horse takes off his like hood, Rickman, and it's like Hamageddon, just like ham fights. And I only wish that thing had gone on throughout the whole. There's another film here which could have been Brian Blessed trying to thwart Alan Rickman, which would have been deafening, but a brilliant film.
I that bit I just wrote, don't make me choose between the two. Like I was just like, I was so sad that one of them was sort of a baddie, and like I was just like, oh, they're both so brilliant.
Yeah, the problem, I totally agree. The problem with a film where Alan Rickman and Brian Blessed are both in it, which is that it's unlikely that they'll both get a death scene, and that's a real shame because both of those can ham up a death scene like no. I mean, that is the ultimate ham opportunity. And only one of them's going to get to do it unless they somehow both kill each. Oh, if they killed each other at exactly the same moment, then both had like stereo death scenes, that would be lovely. Obviously not possible anymore, sadly. But yeah, then obviously this film is all about Rickman. This film is all about Rickman. Rickman, guy of Gothborn. Shout out to I always forget her name. The woman who plays the witch, Geraldine McEwen.
Yeah.
Who plays she's one of them character actors where you're just like, I know you're in everything, and just because her face is so distinctive. And she's brilliant. Rickman's brilliant. It's like there's the whole goth part of the film where it's always like in a dungeon. All of that is brilliant. I love it all. It's just all fantastic. It's so camp and I love it. It's fantastic. So that completely won me over. And then just every time you sort of start to flag a bit, in comes Rickman with another lovely little line. I just like a palate cleanser. But I tell you some things that I didn't like, some things that I really didn't like.
There's a list.
I did not like the Kevin Costner comes out of a waterfall bum scene. I didn't like that at all.
Do you know what? I renamed this film at one point and I just put Robin Hood the Flirty Thief.
I think flirty, you've been really
so
generous because I find
flirty.
him a little bit creepy.
But like when he's like robbing someone in a little, I don't know what the little carriages and things, he's just so flirty and she's like, oh yeah, take my ring off because you're so cute, and it's just it's ridiculous. Yeah, Robin Hood the Flirty Thief, which is impossible to say.
Robin Hood the Flirty Thief, yeah, that is hard. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yes, that I mean, okay. I mean, I don't want to get into this too much because this isn't bread tube. But what is the message of this film? Right, this is the thing that I was like watching it, going like, am I reading too much into this? But so basically, Rickman is like trying to take over the country and become the king. So Robin Hood, Costner, gets a group of the proletariat, like the peasants, together to form what is essentially a guerrilla resistance to him. They manage to sort of stop him, but then as soon as they've stopped him, then the king comes back and they're like, oh great. So I'm like, well, what happens now? Do you just then go back under the feudal boot, but of Sean Connery rather than Rickman? Like, how is this progress? And also it's weird because you think like, well, Robin Hood's a nobleman, and it's sort of like he goes, well, you need to rise up as the poor, but I definitely need to be in charge because I'm important and you're not. And none of it, like, I'm like, what are you getting at? It didn't really make. I felt like they'd sort of misunderstood the point of the story, which was never that like Robin Hood just wanted to stop a bad man doing a bad thing until the king came back and sorted everything out. And like, wasn't the whole point of the legend about the idea that all kings are bad and that the feudal system is bad and that they shouldn't be treated like that or have to pay any taxes and it's wrong? Like, that seemed to be the thing. But at the end of it, they're just like, oh, thank you, Robin Hood. Like, and now the king's back, everything will be fine. But, it was a PG, so I'm not expecting deep class analysis, but I was just like, I don't really understand why this makes sense. Plus also, Sean Connery, he's been off doing some dreadful things and he comes back and he's just like, I'm back. The dreadful things didn't go so well. And also, when he comes back to that wedding right at the end, doesn't have anything to say about the fact that Morgan Freeman's there. Everybody else who's clocked Morgan Freeman has been like, but you're a Moor. But the guy who's just been off fighting them and has literally just got back doesn't say anything about that. He's just fine with that. Don't even mention it. Just lets it go. But, if you start getting into plot holes, it's probably not worth it, is it? You'll end up losing
and he
your
does
mind.
Turn up to the wedding, Sean Connery, dressed like a fucking Christmas tree. It's just in like this red and gold sparkly tabard, just wearing all of his wealth just on his front with like a little, I don't know, Spice Girls hat on. And yeah, you're right. Apparently, like the guy that's been hoarding all the gold, he's bad. But the guy that's covered in it from head to toe, oh, he's great. Like, we love him. He's lovely.
It's like everything was brilliant before he went off on the Crusades. And now this guy, well, there's two things about that. And I like these, again, this is from the very cursory amount of research I did. Do you know who they wanted to play the Sean Connery role?
No.
They had a first choice. Reynolds had a first choice for this, but he was denied by the studio. They wanted John Cleese. And John Cleese was up for it, apparently. They really wanted John Cleese. Because he said, apparently Reynolds kind of really loves Monty Python and he thought John Cleese would be perfect. And so he said, let's have Cleese. And they said, no, you can't have John Cleese because the studio this is, not just his own imaginary voice, said, no, he's too associated with comedy. It will make the end of the film seem comic. We can't have him. And also, whoever it is in that film, they can't be credited in the film because obviously if they are credited, then they'll spend the entire film waiting for them to turn up, and they don't turn up until the last sort of 8 seconds. So they were like, we need someone to come in and do like one day's work, but it needs to be someone massive, and it needs to be someone that doesn't mind not getting a credit on the film at all. And so they eventually they decided Sean Connery was the way to go. But yeah, John Cleese could have had that.
Wow.
Do you think Cleese would have been better? I mean, he's barely.
Do you know, it would have been a different film. We would have been having totally different conversations. And I just feel like it would have been hilarious because I think, I don't know, you could have leaned into the fact that the dogs were all cute and cuddly. You could have focused on the change in the lip gloss. Do you know what I mean? We'd been like, it's so funny. Look at these little treats. And instead, we're just like, it's quite serious. But he did look fabulous.
He did. It's true. I don't know why, but the words that came to mind were Marks and Spencer's biscuit tin when I first saw
Yes, he
Sean
does.
Connery.
He looks like a biscuit tin. Yes, yes.
All the right colours and all the right sort of
all the
lovely
spangles.
biscuit tin man. And I think as well, one of the great things about putting him in there was it was almost like the final nail in the accent coffin, because the whole film, people's accents had either been drifting hither and thither or just barely attempted. And then right at the end, you get old, I don't give a shit himself, who turns up.
I mean,
just goes, I only do one accent.
It's mine. There was
Don't worry.
I'm sad that there's no Nottingham accents in this. That's always going to upset me.
Oh, lot of Somerset, bit of Cornish. No Nottingham.
East Midlands came there none. But yeah.
I would say Howard Lou Lewis was probably the closest, because he's from like the West Country.
He doesn't get a line.
He doesn't even get to say anything. So
you can hear him laughing at one point. That's it.
Oh, and what? Because his voice that's a big part of his appeal, right? I mean, the voice is great. So yeah, very disappointing. And so let's say, obviously, we've talked about Howard Lou Lewis, lovely work, and rest in peace. Mike McShane. Let's talk about Mike McShane. To me, lights up the screen. Lovely Mike McShane. Oh, wonderful Mike McShane. I will watch anything with Mike McShane in it. I don't care what it is. Even if it's just an advert or CCTV, I'll watch Mike McShane doing anything because he's Mike McShane. He's just funny just as a concept. Just you see Mike McShane and you're instantly sort of mildly amused, right? Because he's Mike McShane. And he just looks like he'd be a great cuddle. Really, can you imagine? Oh, lovely man. He's a bit slimmer now, I've noticed, as I looked him up, but he's still cuddly. Still cuddly.
Aww.
Still working.
Good.
In fact, he's about to be on tour doing improvised comedy with, I know Paul Merton is involved. I don't know who else is involved. I don't think they've all been announced yet. But I'm like, if that comedy tour involves Paul Merton, Mike McShane, just give me one more. If you give me Josie Lawrence, I'm going. You give me Caroline Quentin, I'm going. You give me Sandy Toksvig, you give me, I mean, you're not going to get Slattery, but if any of the golden era, I'll take. Oh, Colin Mockery. I'd love that. But yeah, Mike McShane as Friar Tuck, fantastic. Top draw, beautiful casting. I guess what we do have to talk about a little bit is if we're talking about accents, is Christian Slater. How did you feel about the work of Christian Slater in this film?
I liked his trousers. I wanted a pair of those. They're quite glittery. Yeah. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good trousers.
I'm glad you did. Yeah. He had good trousers. He had incredible hair. His hair was amazing throughout. And what I loved about him was he attempts a British accent, but he literally gives up on it halfway through the first word that he says, and then he tries to bring it back in the next sentence, and then don't really get it, and then tries to wrestle with it kind of. But there was a young man from Nottingham. That bit, you're like, you're starting with that, and now you're going to try and do a British accent. You're going to try and pull that back after starting with that. Extraordinary work. The person I felt is the woman who plays Marion, whose name is so long I can never remember how to say it. But her accent was like quite reasonable, like received pronunciation British, but it was in such a sea of garbage accents that it's just got lost. Like, you just didn't even notice that she was doing quite well. So yeah, Costner, I think I pinpointed the exact moment. It's when Christian Slater turns up. Costner's just like, I know obviously they didn't film the film chronologically, probably, I don't know, Kevin Reynolds is mental, so probably did, but it's when, it's like, I think it's because it's his first scene with Christian Slater, and it's like when he hears Christian Slater's voice, it's like Kevin Costner just goes, oh, are we literally not trying? Oh, I'll just stop trying then. And then he doesn't try again. That's it. He's attempting the British accent all the way through. He just can't be bothered. As soon as Christian Slater, as soon as he joins with Will Scarlett, he's like, no, bollocks to it. Just be American now. Who cares?
I'm sure there are like voice coaches that can help you learn the Nottingham accent. It's a lovely one.
I don't think they cared. I mean, also, just as not we want to get into it, but the side note is like, I mean, you remember when Russell Crowe had to go? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So in many ways, I think Costner had it right because that was embarrassing. And not only did he have a go and it was terrible, don't feel sorry for him, because when someone very, very gently pointed out to him that your accent sounded a bit Irish, and I think the person he was interviewing was Irish, so, or I can't remember exactly, but he said to Russell Crowe, your accent sounded a bit Irish. And everyone had been saying it, because it did. And people actually were going, well, actually, you know, at the time, maybe people would have had accents like that because of the Celtic influence. Blah, 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 blah. And he stormed out of the interview because he was so offended that someone said his accent was a bit Irish. You're like, mate, have you watched the film? Like, you sound like, I mean, not even Irish, really, just sort of like maybe Isle of Man. Just one of them weird, like, very non-committal kind of like bizarre, semi-Celtic kind of accent. But yeah, that film is absolutely dreadful. Unfortunately, came out well after the 90s, so it's of no concern to us.
What would make a good 90s, like, you know, or just generally a good Robin Hood movie for you?
Well, the Basil Rathbone one is pretty good. The Errol Flynn Basil Rathbone one's pretty good, I think. I mean, obviously, I can't remember when that came out, but it's good. It's proper swashbucklage. Like, it acknowledges the fact that this is all rubbish, and that it's just like, it's all about the sword fighting and the bow and arrows and the jumping off things.
Yeah, you do need bow and arrows and sword fighting, definitely.
I think that's where you go, and I think the key to it, if you made a good Robin Hood film, is that I would make him like a proper, like, even though I know he's technically like the gentry, I'd make him talk like that. My name's Robin Hood, yeah? I'm going to take this off you. I'm going to give it to the poor, right? That's what I'm doing, yeah? That's how I'd have Robin Hood speak. You know me. Have you seen my bow and arrow though? I will absolutely destroy ya. Give me that crown or whatever you got in there. Oh my God. That's how I'd have Robin Hood speak. If they did that, I think it'd be awesome. In fact, all the Merry Men, if they all spoke that, you could totally do it. There's loads of famous Nottingham actors now.
Loads.
Get Paddy Considine. I mean, he's not technically, but he does it well.
He could do it. Yeah, he'd be great.
Yeah, get him in. I'd have this maybe the Merry Men, definitely just Sleaford mods. Just in there, not ever named, like they're not like Little John or anything, but like you just pan across and then it's just like Jason and Fernie just sat there kind of like dressed in little green hoodies or whatever they'll have on, and I'd just be like, was that Sleaford Mod? I would totally do that. I'd have basically any Nottingham celebrity you could cram in there. I'd have Sue Pollard in it. Of course I'd have Sue Pollard in it. I'd have
Vicky McClure, she's Nottinghamish, isn't she?
Yeah, I'd have Banger in there. I'm not going to check. Banger in there, get her in there. Why not? And I just think if you crammed it full of Nottingham celebrities, then no one will complain about the accents, and also it'd be funny for us. Shane Meadows, let's call Shane Meadows. Get him on it.
Samantha Morton, she's from Nottingham, isn't she?
She is.
She's
yeah.
loads of stuff.
I thought you were about to say Samantha Mumba. Then I was like, no, you were off now. But then I just thought, when was the last time I thought about Samantha Mumba? A long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need to. I'm gonna tweet Shane Meadows and say, Shane, got an idea for you. Get all the cast of This Is England and all that lot.
Yeah, I know it's been done, but it's not been done right.
It's not been done right at all, mate. And then if he says, who is this? I'll say, one time I saw you at Beeston train station selling an expensive bike. And then just leave it at that. Because I did.
Well, who was he selling it to?
Just a random bloke.
Oh, cool.
So he was selling this. I was in Beeston train station waiting to come home because I used to work in Beeston. Beeston's in Nottingham, by the way, for anyone who doesn't. Who has Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves levels of geography, but it's a Nottingham suburb.
That's so rude.
I was in there waiting to get home, and I was just overheard, because have you ever met Shane Meadows or come into contact with Shane Meadows?
I don't think so.
I'm not going to slag him off in any way. I don't know him, but the couple of times I've been in his presence, not having ever spoken to him, he is a loud man. He's a very upfront kind of kind of declarative kind of center. He draws a lot of attention because he's sort of dead upbeat and really kind of likes to involve everyone in the conversation kind of thing, and likes to sort of rib people. And I suddenly just heard this voice and thought, I feel like I know that voice. I turned around. Shane Meadows is an unmistakable looking person, and he was standing by his quite fancy car because he's quite successful at this point. In Beeston car park, pulling out like a quite expensive road bike out of the back of the car, and this bloke in lycra was just sort of staring at it, being like, yeah, looks all right, mate. And then there was just like a long altercation where they were trying to sort of decide on a price to sell it for, and then the guy sort of rode it off. And I was just like, that's weird that I've seen that go down. But yeah, saw Shane Meadows selling a bike to a bloke at Beeston train station. Top anecdotes.
I saw Alan Rickman in Islington.
Right, cut
Save
out my previous anecdotes because it was dog shit compared to this.
No. I didn't really meet him or anything, but I saw him outside the Queen's Head or something in Islington. And I did that thing where I looked and I was like, is that? And he must have seen me just go, is that? And just slightly lean forward and be like, is that? I'm pretty sure, and then look away. And he'd seen it, so he just did, which is just dreamy. He sort of slightly raised an eyebrow and did a sort of signature kind of pout, just so that I could be sure that it was. So it's this lovely little exchange of is that? It's
that's the stuff dreams are made of, Miriam.
And that's why I will always love him.
Oh.
But I didn't go up to him and get his autograph because he's out with his friends or something, or seen a show, I don't know what. But he was busy. I was just, walking past. But it was a delightful exchange.
Because that's so classy. Because
that's really classy.
That's all you want, isn't it? All you want is for them to acknowledge that you've recognised them, and then that's all you want. You don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to them. What can I say? But you don't want them to scowl at you or pretend that you're not there, because you're just like, excuse me, sir, you are famous, and that is not my fault. That is your fault. So I'm like, don't have a go at me for looking at you, because you've put yourself in films like that. What did you think was going to happen? So
yeah, maybe best not. You don't have an exchange.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why it's best I don't. Yeah, but yeah, I like when that happens.
I've never, and it is the classy. I was like, if I ever get famous, that is just the whatever, you need to come up with a thing. Yeah. Yes, it is that me. Kind of thing. But without saying it, it was delicious.
There's no way that I can even begin to top that beautiful anecdote about. But I will say this, just to wrap it all up, as I think it will perfectly. Is before I said there was some controversy about whether the script punch-up meeting between Ruby Wax and Alan Rickman occurred in Pizza Hut or Pizza Express. And I'd
Yes.
strongly come down on the likelihood that that was a Pizza Express, because there's been a Pizza Express in Soho for a very long time. And Pizza Hut only came to this country around mid-1980s. But for a very long time, there was only one branch of Pizza Hut in London, and that was in Islington. So maybe not only did the script punch up for Robin Hood Prince of Thieves take place with Ruby Wax and Rickman, which I believe, but maybe it took place right in front of the fully stocked salad bar of Islington Pizza Hut. And if that's the case, then we must visit there. We must go there. We must get a disappointing pizza and an unlimited access to the quite disappointing salad bar with quite horrible dressings. And then we that could be where anytime if we ever need to punch up a script, that's where you and me go.
Yeah, over a scoop of bacon bits. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. You bring that. I mean, it's up to you. If you want to be Rickman for the day and I'll be Wax, I'm happy with that. I'm happy to do either, because they're both absolute dreamboats in my personal view. Two of my favourite British miscreants are Alan Rickman and Ruby Wax, and the fact that they were friends. Oh, it's just lovely.
Makes you want to cry, doesn't it? It just makes you want to cry. Happy tears.
It does. But yeah, I think that's the thing about this. If we want to talk about the Forgetty Spaghetti, as we probably should, I would say this film, I'm perfectly happy to see it. I would be perfectly happy to see it crammed deep beneath the top greasy pasta layer, never to be seen again. I would have thought that, just thinking about Costner and his utter lack of facial expressions in this film, which we haven't touched on, but I just want to throw it in there. Just take any point in this film and just see that Costner literally doesn't emote or act at all. He just has a blank, potatoey face, as I've said before. But this film isn't about Kevin Costner. This film is about Alan Rickman. And I'm probably not going to buy the 2009 Blu-ray edition, which has the extended 155-minute director's cut with a whole 10 minutes more of Rickman fun. Including a subplot where it turns out Mortiana is actually his mother. Da da da. But I'm probably not going to watch that. But it makes me happy to know it exists, that has been documented. That really the triumph of Rickman was that he fought both Kevins and he bested them both, because he absolutely owns this film, and both of them failed to make a decent fist of it. It's Rickman's movie.
He committed to it 100%, and I just think that, as we've heard from the definitely, a definite recording, it wasn't just a script that I knocked together last night. Definitely, that's direct quote, from the casting agent and Kevin, that he was just in the wrong movie. That he just thought it would be better if he played it as a different film, and he was wrong.
It's true, and I think it's probably worth just ending on this nugget, which is that after they made this film, Kevin Reynolds and Kevin Costner went on to make another film together. Do you know what film that was?
Yes, I do know what film that was.
And what film was that?
It was Waterworld, wasn't it?
It was Waterworld. And guess how that resulted in terms of those two people? I don't think they spoke to one another for a whole decade afterwards.
They wrote bridge too far.
They hated each other. So I just think there's such a beautiful arc of Kevinry. But this is the point where, the Kevins made their first tentative steps into the film, into working together. And it ended in one of the most expensive film disasters of all. I think it still is the biggest loss of any film of all time, because it cost a ridiculous amount of money and made almost nothing. So, yeah. Well done, the Kevins. And long may Rickman's name be wrung out, for he was one of Britain's best actors, genuinely, but also one of Britain's just best lovies. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Just one of Britain's best cravat-wearing, roll-up smoking, Soho drinking den frequenting, proper old-school lovies. And gorgeous. I just think there's not enough of them, and certainly not enough left. And Rickman was one of the best.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that jazz. Until next time, goodbye.